hang on.
Oh, there you go. Thank you. I thought we were all in. Anyway, we're using a new StreamYard program. We're just getting used to it.
You know what? I don't know why they change things all the time. I really don't.
That's what they
just
do.
Drives me insane.
They're selling us air.
Things are working fine. You get used to it, and then they come onto the page and they move everything around and change it all and make it more difficult for you. It just drives me insane.
Anyway, hello world, and welcome to Untold Radio's Down South Anomalies. My name's Jay Katz.
And I'm Aspasia.
Now, where are we broadcasting from, Aspasia? Darragland
That's
here,
right.
and we want to pay our respects to our beautifully profound and historic Indigenous culture and the elders past, present, and emerging. We have one of our favourite guests back. Someone we can always rely on,
Absolutely.
A real gentleman of ufology, Roger Stankovic.
Mm-hmm.
And we've named this episode Roger Stankovic Redux, because we're going to step to where episode 106 was cut during the streaming.
Yes.
Right on the word N.S.A. But also the other topic of this podcast is H2O and the U.F.O.
Mm-hmm.
You and I have pondered.
We have for a
this
long time now.
extraordinary relationship between water and these objects that have been seen. And I've had some very personal experiences. Now, Roger has a background in forensic pathology. He's an educator, he is a lecturer, he is a world traveler, he is a researcher. He's also the national director for the Mutual UFO Network.
That's correct.
Here in Australia and New Zealand. He has an extraordinary past. And last time the episode we did 106 was his ufological road trip.
That's right.
Which we actually stated was the best holiday slide collection we'd ever come across.
Yep, absolutely.
And we want to welcome you to
Definitely
Untold
hit the high spots.
Radio again. Roger, how are you?
I'm well, thanks, Jamie and Aspo.
It is such a pleasure to have you on the cast. Now, do you remember you could maybe briefly tell us that you had gone to the States, not just for this road trip, but to present a paper at a conference based on the research you'd done into the possibilities, the plausibility that there may be a link between what's happening, especially recently as around 2017 with UAP, UFO disclosure and Havana Syndrome. So could you briefly summate for us, for listeners that mightn't have been listening to or watching episode 106, what paper
they could go back and watch it.
Yeah, they could. But anyway, just briefly, what paper you were presenting in the US there at that conference, and maybe tell us what the conference was about.
Yeah, so the road trip was prior to the conference in Dallas. So, so I had to fly out twice. So we flew out as a group to the United States and did the road trip. Then I flew back, and then after 2 or 3 weeks, I flew back to Dallas and gave a talk on Havana Syndrome and a possible link between non-human intelligence and Havana Syndrome. So basically, I didn't make that assumption lightly. I did a lot of research into Havana Syndrome and also the effects of UAPs on people who come close to UAPs, the medical effects in terms of not only psychological but physiological effects. So what I did, I looked at Havana Syndrome and the possibility that some of those symptoms that people get when they get close to UAPs are very similar to what's happening with Havana Syndrome, except that there's no sound. So nearly all of the signs and symptoms that people experience, apart from a couple, related to close encounters and Havana Syndrome overlap. So I looked at that very carefully, and then I presented a paper based on research, reading articles about Havana Syndrome and how the actual etiology is so difficult to work out, because they've had several intelligence agencies that have looked at Havana Syndrome in terms of what is causing Havana Syndrome. Some of the research has suggested that the Russians might be behind it, but there's absolutely no evidence that any foreign adversary is actually behind Havana Syndrome. And basically, although we don't have absolute proof that there is, evidence to say that, someone spotted a UFO, hovering over someone's house. You know, so say for example, most of the people are like U.S. citizens, but nearly all of them are either in the military or diplomats or are part of the intelligence community that are being targeted. So why would one what I'm saying is that basically, why are they targeting these people? Difficult to know, but what would you attack? You know, to give, if you were sort of like giving a warning to a government about what they're doing in terms of, so for example, it is, so let's say it's NIH, non-human intelligence. They're targeting their intelligence community, which is crucial to the security of that country. So basically, that'd be their most vulnerable point. And diplomats, military, intelligence community. So they'd be the most likely people you'd target. Some of the higher up echelon people within those groups do get targeted, but some of them don't, in terms of, you know, like if you're looking at diplomats or government officials, you know, the president of the United States hasn't been targeted, and people further down haven't been targeted. But you'll find that the people lower down from them are being targeted. So why are they being targeted? It's because some believe, and I believe, and basically that non-human intelligence does not want disclosure to happen at this point in time. And possibly they have a good reason as to why they don't want it disclosed at this time. And in terms of perhaps they have knowledge about what actually happens to a civilization when it actually, the penny drops and it becomes an absolute reality that there is a non-human intelligence here, and what effects that would have on the population on the planet. And so they're basically protecting us. And how do they target these people in a subtle way? Like, and how is it done? It's almost impossible. It's almost impossible to target someone and cause a small amount of brain damage, enough to immobilize them in terms of cognitive abilities, but not kill them. We don't have the technology to actually do this subtle damage to the brain. Sorry.
So do you think that maybe, because, you know, well, UFOs have always been out there because people have been reporting them forever, okay?
Yep.
But nothing like this was happening. But all of a sudden, this Havana Syndrome thing starts happening. Do you think it's because the government has now changed gears and is starting to, you know, with all the congressional hearings and all these whistleblowers coming forward, and this being, you know, they're starting to take notice of it and starting to take it seriously, that they've started to, do you think that's why it started to happen now? Because, you know, exactly. Havana Syndrome has only just come out recently in the last few years.
It's the last 10 years, really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, the thing is it's going out to the grassroots mainstream population, whereas a lot of the, sorry, I got this flying. We've got in the 50s and 60s, people thought, okay, it's probably fiction, you know, and you had your movies and whatever, you know, The Day the Earth Stood Still, etc. And people, you know, the culture was there, you know, people knew what a UFO or a flying saucer was, etc. But they had to make up their own mind as to whether they believed it or not. But now, as Asper's put it,
I mean, they were still
gone to the level of the Congress. So,
well, people were still reporting these things.
People were still reporting them,
but it wasn't people, you know, in the military, because you know the military, the government, the officials had done a really good job on keeping the lid on who reported these stories. It was always, you know, lay people, just, you know, your everyday people, not out of the, not diplomats, not higher ups in military circles or diplomats
there were
or anything
people
like that.
There were people in the military who were reporting things in the 50s
Yeah, but
and 60s.
it was.
And I'll contradict you there, because you had people like Donald Kehoe and you had major.
Yeah, but nobody was
people,
listening to
but
him.
no, it wasn't receiving the same
It
press.
wasn't. Nobody
and
was listening to them.
Also, since 47, it had been doused in ridicule, which
Yes,
is what Roger's
but then,
saying.
when you've got lone voices on their own saying these things, doesn't matter who they are, it's sort of like, okay, well, things have happened. This guy's, gone a bit mad and he's starting. But when you've got, when the government's having congressional hearings into these,
it's a very different thing.
It's a different story. It's like
a very
people
different
sitting there
story,
listening, right? So,
yeah.
Is that why you think maybe this Havana syndrome has now started?
I think so.
If it's a non-intelligent, thing happening.
I think it's sort of like they're giving us a warning. Well, not us, but I mean the US government so far, because they're the ones that have taken it to Congress. No other country's taken it to Congress.
Yes.
Perhaps if another country did the same thing, they might be targeted. I don't know. I mean, the thing is that, and also
we have
states.
If we can just interject there, excuse me, I apologise, but
right.
Australia has had some diplomats targeted with this, and this does from the outside look like it's a pulsed microwave weapon that's very precise, that targets very precise areas of brain function. And this is what the weird thing about it is. The other thing I was very curious about is the sound. I hadn't really discussed that with you before. Is there always a sound with Havana Syndrome?
Some people sometimes don't hear a sound, but often they do. But going back to the Australians, they were 2 Americans that visited Australia that got zapped here in Australia.
I remember that. My apologies.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
No, that's okay. So no Australians have been targeted. There were 2 officials from the United States that actually got zapped here. Don't know, it was in Sydney or somewhere. But yeah, so that these officials get targeted anywhere in the world, but they're always US or Canadian citizens. They're never any other nationality.
Wow.
Which sort of like you think, it could be Russians. I don't know, but like when Trump was in power the first time, and even now he's got, to a certain degree, he's got really good relationships with Putin. Why were they targeting the United States citizens while Trump was in power? I mean, it didn't seem like, if it was Biden or someone else, but I mean, if it was the Democrats, but the Republicans, obviously get along really well with Putin, and I mean, and the relationship, political relationship between Russia and the United States is, a lot better with the Republicans than it was with the Democrats. But it started happening in 2016, so very late. So 31st of December 2016 was the first.
That was patient 0, wasn't it? That was
patient
the first
0,
patient made the public.
Sorry, your second question, it was about the sound. It's a really weird sound, which tends to mimic a cricket sound. So basically, this is what got piqued my curiosity, is that whatever was doing it was trying to imitate a natural sound in the field, like a cricket sound, to actually deploy this sound, which was damaging to the nervous system, to the individuals. And basically, it was sort of like an obfuscating type of way of delivering that sort of energy weapon to make it look as if, it's the crickets that are actually causing this problem, when in fact in Cuba and other areas, these crickets have been endemic for thousands, millions of years, who knows, and it didn't affect the local population. So how do you explain that? How do you explain that? It's not the crickets, by the way. Although if you look at the waveforms, if you look at the waveforms of both the actual Havana Syndrome sound, and there's only one recording. There was one recording by the Associated Press that was released by the Associated Press of an individual who was actually being attacked real time, got their phone out and then recorded it. Right. So that recording is the only real live recording that was obtained by an individual, and we don't know who the individual is. It would have been a diplomat or someone from the intelligence community, who then submitted that to the Associated Press. And what they did is compared that waveform with the echo sound of the West Indies cricket, and it almost matches it in nuance perfectly. And basically, it's as if the cricket's inside a room. So the field sound is different to the echo sound. Echo sound meaning that you've got the sound in a room with. So it's quite, you know, like it's a bit different in terms of the field. The field sound doesn't quite match it. So of the field cricket, but if the sound's played within a room, it almost matches the Havana Syndrome sound perfectly.
That's fascinating. Is there any similarity if people held this signal up and seen if there's any similarity to the signals, the sounds that were recorded in crop circles? I know the BBC recorded some anomalous sounds in the 90s. Is any of that data?
I haven't looked at that, to be honest. I know what you're talking about, and because I've been looking at crop circles since the 80s, but I haven't really looked at comparing those sounds with the Havana Syndrome sound. I think people said they hear, correct me if I'm wrong, buzzing sounds or whatever. They have a feeling like different, sort of like actually, I'm thinking of doing a crop circle tour next year, but to experience it myself. But people have gone in them, as you say, and they experience sounds and different feelings psychologically as well as physiologically. But so I haven't really looked at whether, you know, maybe we should be looking at it.
You know, there's a hypothesis there that you're looking at very extreme microwave energy that's been put into those fields, that's laid down those circles and pictograms. It's just fascinating. I remember when I went to the 90s, in the early 90s, to investigate the Knowles case on the Nullarbor. And we actually, and I can't remember the frequency now, we'd actually recorded similar frequencies using an exact machine, a testing machine, and we took them onto the Nullarbor plain. And every time we played those frequencies, we got anomalous photographs, really weird beams coming down into our tent and all sorts of things. It might be some area to look into. Now, you were presenting this. Go on.
Sorry, I just wanted to comment about the crop circles and how they're laid down. Yes, it is microwave radiation, and yes, it could well be a different frequency that they're using in Havana Syndrome. But it's quite interesting. It's quite an interesting point that you brought up. That that they, you know, like this is the way they operate. I mean, basically, they probably use microwaves for a lot of different things and terms of communicating and damaging people as well. Sorry, continue on.
No, it's fascinating. Now, you were presenting this paper at a MUFON conference. Maybe just tell us the name of that conference and what happened with these couple of alphabet agency people that were sitting in there your attention was drawn to. And I think they were members. You stated it was episode 106. You can go back and look at that when it cuts at the very end. You stated that they were possibly people from the N.S.A, the National Security Agency.
Yeah, I know they were, for sure. Basically, This is the Dallas conference that I went to. So it's an international MUFON symposium for 2024. And when I delivered the talk, I didn't really observe anyone in the audience. I wasn't picking anyone out. So I wasn't, you just scan the audience and you're looking at your slides, etc. So there was a lot of people there and I didn't really take note of anyone. But after I finished the talk, next, I think it was the next day, Chris DiPerno, who's the state director for MUFON in New York, who was, well, he's had many jobs, but he was, I believe, a contractor for the N.S.A.
Right.
And he actually spotted them, and he knew one of the guys.
Right.
So that's how I can confirm that it was someone from the N.S.A. and the other guy was also. So there were two apparently retired N.S.A. You know, if you're in the intelligence service, you never retire.
No, of course you don't. You go to a village if you start speaking too much and you're given a number. But anyway, wow. And so,
you never retire. So he came over to me at breakfast and he said, "Can I speak to you for a minute, Rog?" And he goes, and I said, "Yeah, what happened?" And he goes, there were two NSA guys in the talk, and I approached them and I asked them, "What are you doing here?" And they said, "We're just, obviously taking notes and recording me as I was delivering the talk." So I'm assuming that, I mean, it may not be nefarious in any way, but I mean, probably they're interested to know what other people's opinions are, because they've got no clue, apparently. I mean, they've spent, apparently this was the largest investigation that was ever made by the CIA ever into Havana Syndrome. They spent more money on it. They spent more time than any other project ever in history. And they came up with
extraordinary.
Sorry?
That is quite extraordinary.
Yep. And Bill Burns, who was the former, is he still the CIA director? I can't keep up with the changes.
Sure.
But Bill Burns was saying that, I've come up with nothing. I can't work out how this works. I don't know. And I mean, what sort of level of intelligence would you need? It'd have to be, out of this world, pardon the pun, to have got away with something like this.
With that agency behind you. Yeah, with that agency and that money behind you, it must be absolutely perplexing to them.
If there was somebody else out there, a foreign adversary, they would have found them easily. Either that or they're covering up. So why would you be spending, I don't know how many billions of dollars they spent on this investigation and found out that, oh, yes, it's the Russians, but we can't say anything. But let's just keep spending billions of dollars and then obfuscating it to the public. That sounds really weird. But anyway, who knows?
So if we were to think that at the end of the day that there is legitimacy back there in 89 to Dennis, who became Bob Lazar, and his story of being approached by Edward Teller to work at EG&G, which led to Groom Lake and his back engineering. And again, Teller saying that this was a maverick and we're looking for a solution in back engineering and looking at these craft. Maybe we just grab someone out of the public sector that thinks differently to the way we do, and their mind might open up a solution. And so that could have been your Bob Lazar moment. So I think any moment now the phone could ring, Roger, and you might disappear for a while to a restricted facility somewhere. Isn't that astounding?
I'd love that.
I'm sure you would. And I hope you keep us abreast with it here on Untold Radio. Look, one thing I really wanted to raise with you, and it's this notion that we've had for a long time about the relationship of water to the UFO, the UAP, the flying saucer phenomenon. And recently, in the drone incursions in the States, there were so many of these objects caught coming out of, even by the Coast Guard and photographed, coming out of the Pacific Ocean, coming out of large bodies of water, coming out of tributaries. And as I said, when I had gone to investigate the Knowles case in the early 90s, many years after it had occurred in 88, I think, on the Air Highway, where a family of four, mother and three sons, were picked up by an anomalous object.
John Ockertill and I think Bill had
did some research, and Bill Chalker and Basterfield, and everyone's got a different opinion. You know, some people say they hit a cattle ramp. I can tell you, from matter of fact of being out there, there are no cattle ramps.
No.
You cannot graze cattle out there.
There's nothing to
and
graze.
there's also a lot of strychnine in the background environment that's still deadly. And it was one way that the governors of the day were utilizing their power over, shockingly, our Indigenous community. So they didn't hit a cattle ramp, and I feel for sure something truly out of this world happened to that family. But when I was out there prior to that, there was a meteorite that came down in Broken Hill. And we stopped in Broken Hill, and I spent literally many days there. And I went out onto the Mundi Plains, which are the longest, flattest plains in the southern hemisphere. If you look at Priscilla in the desert, there's a scene where you see them get out of the bus and look at those plains. I sat there an entire night with about 20 locals that had experienced stuff out there, and I heard some incredible narratives. I also, on the Euclid Basin, where this family was supposedly picked up off the air highway there in the Nullarbor, I went and spoke to the closest homestead, the Mundrabilla homestead, to the roadhouse that they pulled into. And evidently this incident literally occurred outside their front gates, which were about a kilometre from their homestead. And they actually spoke to me about their water tanks being drained by cylindrical objects. They were able to look up and see hieroglyphs on these objects and see silt from the bottom of the water tank, rocks and pebbles and sand and dust and dirt attached to the bottom of the craft. These were very complex narratives. And they also said there appeared to be a relationship with these objects and what were like underground. There's massive underground caving in the Nullarbor, as well as underground springs and water. And these objects seem to hover around them. And then when I'm back in Broken Hill, people start telling me stories of the dam and anomalous objects coming out of the dam. And then you think of Gosford and all those objects that Moira McKee and Brian Dickinson wrote in their book, The Gosford Files. Those objects were draining water from the coastal regions there. So there's always appeared to me this huge relationship with water. Now, there's two major questions here. One is that relationship with water, but a lot of researchers from outside this country and a few locally are telling me now that we're in the midst of our own UFO flap, a massive one. And I'm wondering if there at MUFON you're seeing more reports than you've seen before, or you're hearing about drone incursions. And they're saying it's not being covered in the press. I'm noticing a few things, but not to the extent that I'm hearing out there in the zeitgeist.
Yeah, well, we have, all I can say is that we have had almost double the amount of reports that we've had since November last year.
That's amazing.
It's phenomenal. We can't keep up with it. Usually we get about 110, 120 reports. I think we've got 250 for this year. It's just gone crazy. But I don't really know. I mean, I haven't done the analysis as to whether, I mean, it's hard to do any analysis on this sort of stuff to determine whether these people that are reporting things are actually, just haphazardly seeing these things without knowing, without having any predisposing knowledge about what's going around in the media in terms of these drones. So, I mean, if people, what I mean is that, people that are interested in the topic of ufology will go on social media and they hear about, all these drones. And so they'll go out and have a look. Now, is it just because, the media is saying, there seems to be, an increased number of these weird drones that everyone's seeing in the sky, so let's go out tonight and have a look to see whether we can spot anything. So is it that? And that is that why you could go out in the night and see nothing, but the thing is that, and the chances of that are pretty bloody high, but the thing is that people are seeing things. So is it are these people, are they knowledgeable about, what's going on in social media, and they're going out deliberately to find things, or are they just haphazardly going out and seeing objects and then reporting
because there's
them?
more objects in the sky.
Because there's more objects in the sky.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So
Well, I think you have got a conundrum there. The awareness is heightened, so more people would be readily available to have their phone on hand.
Maybe more people are looking up into the sky.
And you know what? I mean, technology has actually made us look down and spend so little time pondering what's above us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so maybe that heightened awareness, but still that sounds like a massive increase.
Well, double.
And it does sound correct to the stories I'm hearing.
It's crazy. And I mean, it's usually like lights in the sky, which they can't identify. And, I've had reports going to me, not through MUFON, like people a lot of the time send reports directly to me and they send me the videos, and they go to my website and, send reports. So there's a lot more than what we've got in the actual website, and the, the case management system, MUFON case management system. But certainly it's like, as a sample, you can consider that as a sample, the stuff that we're getting through MUFON. You can obviously see that the amount of stuff that's coming through is just phenomenal, and it's like, it's increased, and it's also sort of like what's occurring in the States, where people are seeing drones and whatever. They're seeing anomalous lights in the sky which they can't explain, but we still like, because like, obviously we're not like the States, and where where they have they can investigate this sort of stuff. If somebody sees a drone over a military facility, they'll send out another drone to see what the hell it is. Send out like a fighter jet or whatever, or a plane to investigate it. I don't think that's occurring here. And so in the UK, I mean, we've had these orbs around airports and stuff like that. I mean, not we. I mean, they have. And so they're seeing anomalous things similar to what I think it's sort of like it's more so a worldwide phenomenon that's occurring. And so
I think you're very right, because this whole drone situation was kicked off primarily in Britain, and then you had cylindrical, spherical objects that were photographed on tarmacs.
That's right.
With air traffic around, which was just frightening. I mean, if that's not a civil aviation problem that could turn into an absolute tragedy, what is? But I think also at the moment, what people are terming to be drones turned out to be not drones at the end of the day. They were more like UAPs or UFOs.
Yeah, well, I mean, see, the thing is that they were saying that they were anomalous objects, but then when Donald Trump got in, he said he was going to investigate it, and after their investigation, they said, they were FAA approved drones, and then you'll have people, you have other people saying, well, no, they're Chinese drones. So Ross Coulthard has actually mentioned that recently, that Ross has been told that they're Chinese drones. But if that's the case, well, what the obvious answer is, why weren't they brought down? And why wasn't there a initiative to bring them down? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. It's just like the balloons, and the incident over Dead Horse in Alaska and places like that, where an actual craft was brought down. We still don't know what happened to that craft, and whether it was retrieved or not. But a lot of it just doesn't make sense to me, and I'm not I believe Ross is being told things, and unless he's actually seen it. It's a bit like the Tic Tac, he's saying that now this is, US government, but I like, it's one thing being told this, it's another thing being shown it.
Oh,
so
totally.
Has Ross been shown a Tic Tac? I don't know. But yeah,
Ross
I
is
find it hard to believe.
Ross is a meticulous researcher, but I think
He
also
is.
Ross is right in the heart of it all. And you've got to be careful.
Absolutely.
And I've stated this before, and with all due respect to Ross, I'm actually really proud of him, and he's doing an astounding job that many journalists would dare walk near.
Sorry, I'm not putting Ross down in any way.
Oh, I know you're not. I know
Basically,
you're not.
I'm just
We
stating
both
that,
highly respect him, but I think like Icarus, you can have trouble when you fly too close to the sun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your wings
True.
can melt.
Yeah.
And you know, you're taking in things from people that are highly credentialed, which are going to be difficult to disbelieve.
Well, you just don't know what their
But all
agenda
of
is at
us
the end of the
know
day, do
what
you?
disinformation is. And you can have 99.9% real information, and then one piece of fraudulent, chutzpah to the side of it can lead us down the wrong alleyway.
Yeah.
And I think that all we can do is what you stated before, and that is get out there and start looking at the sky. So that's really satisfying to me, because we've been hearing things personally that sounded like there was an acceleration in this phenomenon, or at least an acceleration in the documentation and observance of this phenomena by the public for the first time that I haven't seen it in a long, long time, that just is not letting up.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of the States, there seemed to be this high incidence of these objects tracking across America and then going into the Pacific Ocean. Now, the reports that you receive here from Australia and New Zealand, what sort of percentage do we see objects having that same relationship with water that we've actually been witnessing there in the US in the last 12 months?
Well, there have been reports. I've had reports of people coming, sort of saying to me that there was one incident I'll have to pick an incident. In New Zealand, there was a guy who couldn't sleep one night, and he lives close to the water. Got up and he was just restless and thought he might go out onto the waterfront with a glass of wine, and sat down and saw a UFO above the bay, and it was scanning the water. So it sent down a beam and it was scanning in a raster formation the ocean. And then all of a sudden it came to the shore. An entity came out and had a communication with him, a telepathic communication. Very credible guy. But then again, that was something, it didn't come out of the water, but it was scanning the water. There was an incident where people have seen UAPs over water on many occasions, coming in and out of water. We've had reports of that. I'd have to go into the specifics by looking at the report again, because I've gone through so many that, but I do remember people commenting about them seeing, UAPs flying over water, going into water and coming out of water. So what is the association? Hard to say. I mean, like the best place to hide is, in the ocean, if you don't want to be seen. And, you mentioned that thing about them draining the water tank in the Nullarbor. That's not the first time that's been reported. That's been reported on a couple of other occasions where UAPs have been seen above water tanks and then taking water up into them. There was a classic case, which I don't know the details of. I have it. But there was a young man who was in a shed, who was milking a cow or something like that, and saw a UFO come over the water tank, and then drain the water tank, fly off, and basically he told the farmer what had happened, but can't remember the specifics of that one. But that, I mean, there's an association there definitely with water. Now it makes you wonder whether these entities are actually from all water planets, because they'd have to, obviously it'd have to have, and maybe all life is connected to water throughout the universe. Yeah.
Well, I think too that makes us, this particular planet, extremely unique.
Yeah.
I mean, we must stand out, in the universe, in the solar system, in the greater, deeper space is something rather odd because of,
Well, this
the nature of us and our relationship to water. I mean, most human beings, adults are about 60% water, but newborn babies are well over 80% water.
There's other planets that are just entirely water planets, just so you've got no land poking above the ocean. It's there's some planets like that apparently. Some of the astronomers are saying that they're water worlds. So we're lucky we've got land. Otherwise, we'd be swimming.
That was a disastrous movie. I mean,
No.
the interesting thing is, here's an article from 1973, and I just love. I've subscribed to that newspapers.com, and what a brilliant site that is to do research. But here we are. I think since the birth of ufology in the 20th century, in the mid 40s, there's always been reports of USOs. These photos they came out during this whole disclosure. Do you remember these that were taken by the Navy? They're quite astounding shots. And they weren't just still shots, they were moving shots.
That's right.
And one of these things too, I've never read this book. I'll need to find it, because I think there is some strong relationship. And then this author that we love, Preston Dennett, has brought out, But there is some extremely strong relationship with the water and the UFO, which will now get me into the next section I want to discuss with you. And I'm sorry, I'm throwing topics out of nowhere. So I'm going to tell the public you have had no chance to research anything we're discussing today.
You're doing it off the cuff.
You're doing it off the cuff.
And you're doing well.
And we truly appreciate that.
Very much.
Yeah.
Now, evidently, in the advent of AI, if we were to look at OpenAI, generative AI, and chatbot GPT, 100-word email generated by AI is equivalent to at least 1 liter of water, 1 bottle of water. So water is cooled. They are water cooled, these servers and these data factories, to an extraordinary level. And fresh water is now becoming like a very valued commodity on this planet.
It's always been a valued commodity.
And I'm starting to really wonder about, these server farms that are going up overnight, that are taking up agricultural land. And a lot of them are getting into countries like Chile.
So people who shouldn't paint can paint. People who shouldn't be writing books can write books. People that shouldn't be making movies can make movies.
Yeah. But anyway.
You know what I mean?
Look, the point I was getting to here is and a lot of people will say,
Can I just say, and if you can't construct your own, email, you shouldn't be writing emails.
Anyway.
Exactly.
Enough digression.
Seriously. I mean, come on.
But water is used to an excessive extent in the cooling of these server farms, these data farms.
Yeah.
Which are going to have to go up. And, our friend and yours, Elon Musk, created one of the largest ones in Memphis. It's out of control. And it's for the Grok GPT or whatever it is. Yeah. That is run by
Gronk or Grok?
Grok, I think it is. Grok. G-R-O-K. I'm not sure.
It should be Gronk.
G-R-O-K. Thank you. You've got me right.
G-R-O-N.
But the interesting thing is that is actually being powered by another supercomputer called Colossus.
Oh, the Forbin Project.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you remember that film from 1970?
Watch that film. It's all there. It's all in there.
In that movie, predicting pop culture.
Yeah.
So if it's not this water, which is so essential, and I mean, they're actually going into places like Chile, which has got very lax laws when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah.
And there is so many of these server farms down in Chile that they have groups down there. Mossocat is one of them that is actually trying to stop Google and all these companies just going down there and building these gigantic servers that are cooled by water and all sorts of things. They're also cooled by fans and turbines and stuff like that. But a lot of people are saying water's not the major problem. The major problem environmentally is the power that is being taken away, and how much power off the grid it needs to run this stuff. Now, we did a lecture for UFO research with David Thrussell, who was insistent to me that many times that I was a bit like Don Quixote and screaming at windmills with ufology. And he believes that the alien invasion, the invasion of this planet, I don't like that word, is going to occur through artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence now,
it's going to be the ruination of it.
Is absorbing, we're building to this extent. How do you see that? Do you see any relationship where AI plays into the whole ufological thing, or am I just sort of screaming into the air here, Roger? Have you ever pondered that?
This is going to be extremely off the cuff because I haven't even heard of anything, an association. But basically, all I can say about AI is that AI is not, well, it is artificial intelligence in the sense of the word, but it's a machine which gathers information and puts that information together. But the thing is that it sources it from a database. So if it's not on the database, it can't source it or can't, make sense of it. So and to your question about how the invasion of the planet could come from an extraterrestrial life form through AI, it's a possibility I've never considered. But they're saying that my personal opinion is that UFOs are actually nuts and bolts craft, but they get here using very tricky technology in terms of being able to manipulate space-time. But other people saying that they're coming here as virtual craft in terms of holographic principles,
right.
which I find hard to believe, because if we have crashes, how can they not avoid a crash if you're a holographic, like reconstruct?
I mean, as you were saying before, the Lottie Zamora case, there's markings in the ground.
Yeah.
Roswell,
exactly.
There were indentations.
There's debris.
There's a physical
spacecraft
impact with this stuff. But when we look into cryptid research and the parallel hominid and Bigfoot and the Yowie, we find incredible similarities there, where there is this extraordinary physicality that can be felt, seen, smelt, touched. And then at other times,
and then it disappears.
There's this incredible anomalous nature to it, where all of a sudden people are speaking about they had Bigfoot in the house and it just vanished in front of their eyes. Now, I've read so many reports that I just can't discount either of them, but they both, when you put the two together, they're paradoxical. They, in a way, sort of remove the validity of both of them. But I've got to take into those documented accounts.
Capabilities. I mean, you've seen it's. I've seen footage of where they break down, film footage, and you can see it in a frame, and then in the next two frames, there's nothing there, and then in the third frame, it reappears.
You're right.
Do you know what I mean? So,
and that's happening in like an 18th or a 24th of a second.
All the time. It happens all the time. So, I don't doubt that these things have. It's a capability. It's, when we say it's an anomalous, it's just that we don't understand how it works.
Certainly.
And so to us, it's like, paranormal or, it's magic or supernatural or whatever it is. It's just that we don't understand that technology, that one moment it's there and you can touch it and feel it and smell it. You can get the radiation off it and all kinds of things. And then the next minute it's just vanished. So it's because we don't understand what
working at the quantum level,
is. It's just something that we haven't discovered yet. Just because we haven't discovered doesn't mean that it doesn't exist and that it's not a possibility.
I truly believe, though, and I've read hundreds of cases where there is physical ramifications. The soil has changed.
Sure.
There's indents there. So how did you dispute that having an impact on three-dimensional reality? You can't.
No.
But then there's this paradoxical moment where it appears to be operating on another level completely. Is that level beyond our comprehension?
Clearly it is.
Don't know.
Of course it is. Otherwise we'd comprehend it.
It's really interesting because I'm sort of like almost 99.999% sure that non-human intelligence has interacted with us. And I've been looking at this for close to 50 years.
Yeah.
That's without a doubt. Like there might be some 0.00000 doubt in my mind, but almost 100% it's here and it's interacted with us. The problem is that it's hard to get that evidence. Not because we don't have it, it's because it's so deeply entrenched in, in the like the stovepiping of the material. And one would wonder, like, how do they do that? How do they collect this material if it's crashed, and how do they collect the biologics, and how do they keep this such a secret? Well, they haven't. They haven't. That's why we know about Roswell. That's why we know about Kingman. That's why we know about all these other crashes.
It's been leaking like a sieve. Yeah.
It's come out. The thing is that once it's obtained by the government, that's it. They completely put a lid on it, and it'll take an act of God to get it out to the public. Yeah. But, when it happens, if there are witnesses, it gets recorded, and like we've got the evidence. People have cited things, people have interacted with, they've picked up the material, they've done all this, they've actually been there, experienced it, seen it, and but once the lid's put on it, that's it. And so it's like you say, it's paradoxical. Like, we see all this stuff, we know it's here, but where is the physical evidence? And so you're in two minds about, if so many people have seen so much stuff, why isn't there anything definitive? It's because the actual definitive material, which is, the actual bodies and the craft or bits of it, has had a very tight lid on it because it's been, confiscated, and it's, as I said, it'd take an act of God to actually get it out into the public, which is what we're trying to do. This is what Congress is trying to do in the United States with the whistleblowers. I mean, you can only go to a certain degree with whistleblowers because it virtually is hearsay,
But, hearsay from some of the most credentialed people in the world, in charge of national security, addressing the president on a daily basis. How much higher can we go?
They want it from the president's mouth.
And you and I know.
That's not even that, Asper, not even from the president's mouth. Even if the president came up to a podium and said, yep, you're right, like what you were thinking about UFOs, they're real. There'd be a lot of debunkers and skeptics saying,
of course there's going to be the people that don't believe. The people that don't believe it are not going to believe it, because what it would take then is for those people to have their whole worldview. They will have to alter and rethink everything that they know, everything that they believe. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's really confronting for some people. That's really, really
extremely
hard,
confronting.
The ones that are so adamant. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the debunkers.
Their whole life is based on whatever it is that they study or whatever that they believe. They just can't let go of that and go, what, I've been wrong all this time. I've been believing what you've been telling me, and now you're telling me it's not. It's like, no.
They'd be jumping over cliffs like lemmings. They wouldn't be.
And there we go. Hey, let's go with the lemming. Let's go with the lemming.
You know the trouble with that too. That was not real. That was a myth.
Not real.
Was created.
I know it's a myth. I know it's a myth of the 70s.
The Disney Corporation.
Not real. Yeah.
And herein lies the rub. Sometimes I think, Roger, we are looking at a physical reality here. We are looking at another form of consciousness. Is that consciousness part of us? Has it been part of this planet from day one? Or is this consciousness coming from outside of this planet?
The consciousness? Well, you know what? If you then go into the abduction scenario, right, which, you know, if this is...
has a lot of paranormal aspects.
Absolutely. But if this is, you know, if this is real, then why isn't that real? Right?
Exactly.
So a lot of people have had that and they've been traumatized by it and all kinds of things happen. Then for them to be able to, you know, they take, because the whole thing is that they're taking our DNA, you know, our eggs and our sperm, and they're, you know,
using it
for making hybrids and stuff, then they would have to be compatible to us.
Yeah, well,
otherwise, do you know what I mean? They wouldn't be able
to
create.
So
there would have to be some sort of a relationship with us, that they're of the same DNA as we are. Otherwise, it wouldn't work, unless they have DNA technology that can go beyond species and just create whatever they want. You know what I mean? So it just opens a can of worms there.
Can I chime in there?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so you brought up a really interesting aspect, which is, you know, like gone through my mind, you know, for several years, and basically, DNA could be universal. In other words, your 4 bases, guanine, adenine, thymine, cytosine, you know, to make up a double spiral DNA could be universal. I mean, it's just like, okay, you know, you get carbon's universal, you know, all our elements are universal. We can find hydrogen everywhere. We can find, so it makes sense that, you know, evolution, if, you know, it goes down the least path of complexity. It wants to, like, evolution, it's like I think it's the second law of thermodynamics. It basically, it wants the shortest path to create, you know, a life form that can actually then procreate and make more of itself. And so perhaps DNA as a double spiral with those particular bases is the, like, key to life in the universe, not just this planet. If that's the case, yes, they can interbreed with us. If not, well, then it's impossible. Basically, you can't, you know, intermingle genes with 2 different types of DNA, especially if the bases are different. You won't get them joining, you know. But different bases don't join because they've got triple bonds, double bonds, etc.
Some can join, but then they can't breed. It's like the mule, you know. You can get a donkey and a horse.
No, but that's different. That's different. That's I'm talking about the actual basic structure of DNA. So DNA makes genes, but the genes are all made of the same DNA. The thing is that if the DNA is different, so for example, you've got an RNA has got a different base that DNA doesn't have, right? But if you've got a different molecule in one of your base pairs of a DNA, you cannot. There's no way that any sort of genetic engineering can occur.
Can happen.
Because it's a different base.
Sure.
Okay. So basically, it cannot occur. So perhaps, and this is one of my pet theories, is that the humans, like the humanoid form, is the key form, body form, throughout the universe that enables intelligent life forms to create civilizations, in like ours, and travel into stellar space to other planets. And perhaps DNA is also universal. I mean, you know, this rubbish about different life forms looking completely different to us is just science fiction. I mean, I think Neil deGrasse Tyson was asked it one day. He was saying, why do our aliens all look humanoid? And I thought, well, why not? He's not a biologist. He's an astrophysicist, apparently. Sorry, but you know, I have my reservations when it comes to him. But basically, there is no reason why we can't have things like DNA, like life forms that are specific to a particular niche.
Sure. So
and
like
create
that's the
life and create-
default. So that's
Yes.
the most basic, the default, head, eyes, nose,
Well,
ears,
you
arms,
have
legs.
a
Or-
nervous system, a central
Yes.
nervous system that's
Mhm.
elevated off the ground, right?
Yep.
So we're not on all fours. We're
Yep.
bipedal. So
Mhm.
bipedal could be number one thing.
Yeah.
Hands and fingers to manipulate your environment.
Mhm.
A central nervous system and basically bilateral symmetry. So if you cut me down the middle, I'm the same both sides.
Both sides. Yep.
Rather than radial symmetry.
Mhm.
All of the evolution has tried all of this on Earth, right? Nature's tried all of this on Earth.
Mhm.
In the very early Precambrian era, evolution tried radially symmetrical animals, which still exist, but they can only go to a certain evolutionary point where they can't progress beyond to become something intelligent. And also they tried, different body forms to actually create different animals that have, they've got their own niche, which they belong in, but they can't progress to what we've done. If you can call this progress, I mean, space travel, etc.
Yeah, well,
Sometimes, yeah, you really wonder. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. This is my theory. I
think that's a really fascinating, valid theory, and I think that I haven't really heard that myself before.
That's because it's my theory.
Oh, okay. You triggered me there. You triggered me then, because in the late 70s, when I left home, I went to Newtown, Camperdown, and I trained as a nurse at Royal Prince Alfred Hospital, and I was the last group of nurses to be trained in the hospital in situ. And underneath the nursing home of like 800 women and 3 men, can you believe that? there was, the training area, and there they actually showed you that symmetry in real time with people's whose bodies were donated to science. You had the half man, the half woman that stood upright in a perspex case.
Yeah.
And they would wheel them out. And that was quite confrontational and still sticks in my mind. Prior to actually witnessing an autopsy. And then the autopsies took that to a new level. But that symmetry is quite astounding.
Yeah. I mean, nature's tried fractal symmetry as well in endocrine creatures at one stage, which didn't get, it's just like you or an engineer trying to work out what's the best shape for this building that I'm building, in this particular area, and it collapses, and I think, we're going to go back to the drawing board, you know. I mean, it's all trial and error, and evolution does a lot of trial and error as well. But I think that the humanoid form, and this is why we're seeing, I believe, we're seeing entities in shaped very much like ourselves. They don't look like us, but they've got a central nervous system that's elevated. They've got 2 arms that are, like, you don't have to use them for walking. You for ambulatory purposes. You use them to manipulate your environment. I mean, we've got dolphins, which are intelligent creatures, but they're restricted. They're in water. They don't have 2 arms to manipulate their environment.
They're never going to be able to knit.
They never knit. No.
They're never going to be able to knit. Yep.
They're never going to be able to knit. But so basically, even elephants, they've got a very, very large brain, much larger than ours. And they are complex creatures. They have emotions. They have all this.
They pair up.
Intellect.
But they are limited in what they can do.
They're limited. Yeah. So I believe that basically the humanoid form is universal in terms of intelligence that can planet hop, because of the fact that this is the key. This is the key to get,
I don't think nature should have ever created us.
Well, you just calm down.
No, I don't. And look how destructive we are. Look how horrible we are to each other.
But then there's people like Roger who are the opposite of that. They
I
give
know
you
that.
faith
Oh,
in
look,
humanity.
You don't
know,
know me that well.
The people, no, we don't. Could be a serial killer at home.
You know
Listen,
what?
I see lots of people that do really, really good things, do amazing things out there all the time.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter how much good those people can do. Unfortunately, it's the people that are in power that make this world go round. And if those people that are in power are not good people,
Power is a drug, and you are diverting us from the discussion here. So
okay.
I think tonight
No,
we've
I agree.
actually, we have resolved that issue with
Right.
the N.S.A. at your lecture.
Yeah.
And expect a phone call anytime now to go to an underground secret base, maybe close to you.
And explain yourself.
Even that, I'll be knocked off.
I think the whole point when I was discussing this afternoon with an environmentalist, this notion about water and the environmental impact of AI is going to be quite extraordinary.
Well, I heard a report, the other day about Melbourne and how these, data places are being built. And now they're going to have to start thinking about how they're going to be getting water, especially when more and more and more of them are going to be built, how they're going to have to, in the future, where the water's going to come from, because they're going to start cutting into, drinking water for
Well, a lot of
people.
people believe that,
and they're worried,
these companies, AI is going to actually bring about some resolution to our water crisis.
Okay.
But they also believe that a lot of these systems are just cooling, and that water is recycled or taken back out and put into the environment. But if it's dumped back into the environment, it's going to go out. It's going to go out a lot hotter than what it did when it came out of that environment, and it's going to cause environmental changes.
Absolutely.
But some of these centers are so large and they're in such rural areas that they can't be just cooled down by water alone. And I think the one in Memphis, Elon Musk has got around the law there by bringing in gas turbines that are cooling it down partially as well as with water. But those gas turbines are all on movable trucks.
Right.
So they're not being an actual installation there. They can get around the law to say at any stage, this is just temporary, and they're going to go.
Yeah.
But the one thing that struck me at the end of this conversation I was having, and I think the power impact's going to be the worst thing environmentally, because this needs so much power.
Electricity.
Incredible amount of power. And a lot of this is going to be carbon-based power. You've got it for AI to be running to the extent it does. You can't afford to have wind turbines or solar power, because when there's a day when you haven't got the wind,
that's right,
and you haven't got the sun, it's all going to come to a big end. So you've got to make sure you've got carbon-based, incentivized power sources around there. And they're talking, Google and all these places are talking about building small nuclear power plants.
What could possibly go wrong?
But you know what they said, with water running out of supply, and I'm sorry we've ranted so much during this discussion because it's supposed to be an interview with you. They said, what happens
you can
when we run out of fresh water? And then they said, have you seen the Omega Man? Have you seen Soylent Green?
That's Soylent Green, not the Omega Man.
So that, and I said, what do you mean by that? He goes, well, you're 60%. I mean, you're an old man now. You're like a stewed prune.
Especially
but at least
if you're dehydrated.
60% of you is water.
There we go.
The babies are 80%. They're going to start using us.
Awesome. Let's just tossing them. You know what it is? Idaho Transfer.
Yeah, it
is. The film. Have
you ever seen that film? It's one of the most. Peter Fonda did it after
his first
Rider.
Directorial debut.
And it was a science fiction film about people transporting themselves into the future.
The future's become
What's
a desolate.
Idaho Transfer.
It's called Idaho Transfer. I think 1974. Peter Fonda did it. It was his first.
I have seen Omega Man. That rings a bell.
Yeah, that's with Charlton Heston.
You've seen Soylent Green, where humans become food. Have you seen that one?
No, I haven't.
Oh, really? You need to see that one. That was supposed to be in 2026. something.
It's around this time. We should check that out.
I think 2024 or 2025 was supposed to be
Was
the
Charlton
year.
Heston in that again?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
I'm sure he was.
Sorry, our pop cultural things coming through here. It's the movie show coming back on.
So, look, Soylent Green is like, there's no more food. Now people have become the food source. You know what I mean? Because there's plenty of us. So, we need to reduce the population anyway. But Idaho Transfer is they've gone, these young kids, and they're the only ones that can travel to the future through these machines to study the planet and what's happened to it after some catastrophe, right? And when they go into these machines backwards and forwards to study what's come back, so a few snakes and lizards and things like that, they become sterile from going through that machine. So the older people can't do it anymore, and the young people don't know they're becoming sterile. But at the end,
are you going to spoil it?
I'm going to spoil it. Who's going to find Idaho Transfer?
It's on
now?
YouTube, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, in the end, one of these girls goes way into the future. She's trying to get away from these people, and ends up in that same spot where she was, but now there's this road there, and this car comes along.
It looks like the Cybertruck.
It does look like the Cybertruck, and they stop. The man gets out, picks her up, and puts her in the back, in the boot, and that's where the fuel tank is, and she's now the fuel. And the little girl in the back, and the little girl in the back says, well, what are we going to do when she's run out? And they said, we'll probably find another one.
Oh, God.
Okay.
And on that note,
you have just spoiled Idaho Transfer. Anyway, it was a failure at the box office, but it's quite a remarkable
it's an amazing film.
It was
a B-grade movie.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you call it that, but it was Peter Fonda.
It was independent. That's why I didn't get the push. And
after Easy Rider with Dennis Hopper,
yeah.
Dennis had run all over him, so he went and did this independent film.
It's quite an amazing film.
Anyway, I don't know where we're leaving this conversation, but Roger, we can't thank you enough for your time.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I think you do an extraordinary job with MUFON. How can people find you and report a ufological incident to MUFON in Australia?
So they could just Google MUFON, and should come up. The page should come up, and basically, if you do see a UAP or UFO, same thing. But Google MUFON, M-U-F-O-N. Some people call it MUFON, pronounce it MUFON. But so once it comes up, you just go onto that web page, and then basically it'll have a red tab saying "Report a UFO," and then just go through this process of logging in your details. Always put a name there, otherwise we can't do the case. I've had a couple of cases recently where people have even not put their name in, or and we can't continue on. We can't analyze the case because I can't actually edit I can't get into the case.
If there's no
so
name,
you've got to put your name there. You don't have to put your address there. We need a telephone number or an email address, because otherwise, how are we going to get onto you? Because everyone that reports a UFO to us, we contact them and investigate it. Not all UFO organizations do that. They just take on the report and then just publish it, or just say, oh, so and so seen something in the sky. But we actually analyze it. We actually use our the way we've been taught. We've got skills. We've got software. We've got the ability to be able to. And what we are, we're more so debunkers. We're the biggest debunkers on the planet. So just wait a second. So what I mean by that is that if somebody reports something to us, we try and work out what it is in terms of a prosaic thing. So we've got to eliminate all these things to say, okay, we've done our work, but we still don't know what it is. We've looked at, all these different software. We've looked at Flight Radar 24. We've looked at WebTrack. We can't say it's a plane. We can't say it's a satellite. We can't say it's a bird. It's not lens flare. So what? We call it an unknown. So we don't call them UFOs until something lands on this planet and we actually have the physical the physical craft, or the actual pieces of it, or the actual entities. Then we call it a UFO. Or it's not a UFO. We call it an extraterrestrial craft with entities in it.
Fair enough. So, you're not debunkers. You're not debunkers. You go through and you eliminate everything that it isn't. And if you come to something and say, "Oh no, this is what it is. We found that this is this," then you will say it. That's not debunking
a lot
something.
Of the time, a lot
clearing
of the
it up.
time we will. Yeah, a lot of the time we will work out that it actually was a plane, a satellite,
Sure.
a celestial object, a bird, an insect, etc., 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 a drone. Some of the times we will find out 5%, 10% of the time we will cannot pin it down. We can't work out what it is.
Fair
and
enough.
So what is that? Not many things have the ability to fly.
No.
It's something called gravity. So basically, if it's up in the air, it's either got to have the ability to fly or something that's, like out of this world. So, putting it simply.
I think the other thing is, as researchers, this is not a faith for us. This is not a question of believing. When you sat down and you've interviewed personally, and it doesn't have to be credentials, but we've all ended up interviewing credentialed people, pilots. And I've interviewed military pilots. I've interviewed civilian pilots. And when you look at these people that know what they're talking about way beyond what I could ever comprehend, and they're telling you what they saw does not fit the pattern of what they know reality to be, you instantly, it's a knowledge. You've gained a knowledge. And I feel in myself, if I go to my deathbed without experiencing another anomalous event, I still know that there is so much more to this reality than what we're led to believe. And that I feel that those people are incredibly sincere. I mean, I sat down and had lunch with Travis Walton. That must be one of the most airtight cases of abduction in the world. The man was taken away for days. His friends were all under suspicion for his murder or death. He definitely had post-traumatic stress disorder from it, but he remembered very clearly 20 minutes with two different forms of hominid, human forms. One was short and small and bulky, and the other one was very much like us. So I don't put that down to belief. I don't put that down to wishful thinking. I put that down to, I know it's real.
Let me say one thing. Let me say one thing. Sorry to interrupt you, but this planet is proof that complex, intelligent life that can actually manipulate its environment and get from one planet to its satellite, we are proof that it can be done. And so if we are proof, for God's sake, I mean, we would have to be out of our minds to think that we are the only life form in this universe. You'd have to be bonkers. You'd have to be up yourself. Honestly, I mean, give me a break. I mean,
the trouble is
there's literally billions of life forms out there. Surely one of them would have worked out a way of getting here. I mean, some of them are, you can have a civilization that's 1 million years old, 1 billion years old. I mean, it just frustrates me that the debunker, I don't care about them anymore, to be honest. I don't listen to them. I don't interact with them, but it's so narrow-minded and so ridiculous an argument to say that, we're the only, life form in the whole universe. It's crazy.
But even to say, even if they say, oh, there's other life forms out there, but, because they
can't get here.
Because we can't go further than wherever we've been, right?
Yeah, the moon.
Then that means that nobody
We've been
else.
To Mars, but a satellite.
But no, I'm talking about physically, okay? Just because, we've only been so far, that means that they haven't been any further either. That's saying that they're on the same level as we are, and that's just crazy to do that.
I mean,
because you just don't know. Like you said, there could be, civilizations out there that are 1 million years old. Who knows where we'll be if we survive it,
if we survive
this conundrum. Who knows where we're going to be in 1 million years, So,
But we're also a species with our limitations, We see into the infrared spectrum probably the least amount of any living life on the planet. I mean, it's amazing what birds and other animals might be able to see in the environment around us that we never perceive to be there. So I think there's lots of things to take into consideration. Sometimes I feel like we are the tadpole in a glass of water, and someone puts their finger into that glass of water when they know the environment's been affected.
But they don't know what it is.
But do they know that it's by a finger of a conscious being that's doing that?
No.
It's like looking at a fourth dimensional object in a third dimensional reality. You know, crop circles have a great feeling of that. There's something way more complex here that we may never grasp.
Yeah.
But what I want to thank you for is just such active discourse, letting us run right over the top of you with our own excitement as well, and just your generosity and your spirit. And take good care, Roger. And just quickly, what's coming up for you?
I did a talk in Melbourne recently on the crash, the UFO trip that we did, UFO crash site trip. And I'm doing another one in Cardwell in Queensland on August hang on, I've got to look at my flight information. 9th of August.
Okay. Oh, that's not
at Cardwell,
soon.
which is not far from Cairns. It's about 2.5 hours south of Cairns.
Okay.
So I'm going up there and doing a talk there, and I'm extremely busy doing other things, and I haven't been keeping up to date with what's been going on in the UFO world for the last couple of months because I've been just extremely busy. But I'll get back into it. But yeah, so that's all I'm doing at the moment.
Yeah.
That's where I have to thank you too. You've got a very sick mother that you've been looking after her, and we send all your love to her and yourself, and we so appreciate the generosity of your time. Thank you for being part of this endless podcast that we're going to fall back on you on the future for, if you don't mind. It's episode 123, Roger Stankovic, Redux, H2O, and the UFO.
Exactly.
And we really adore you, Roger. Take good care. And to all our listeners,
thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. JC, Simon, Malcolm, all those people all over the world, Berlin, England.
I know. It's amazing.
It's quite
isn't
astounding.
It is. I love it.
Take good care, and we'll catch up with you very soon. You've been part of the Untold Radio's down south Anomalies.
Okay. Now, because of the change, I don't know what's going to happen when I hit the end of recording.
Just hit outro?
No, last time I hit outro, it hit it twice. It played it twice. So I'm going to hit the end of recording. If it just ends and dies, well then, there's no outro this week. If it does, then, that'll be great because then I'll
at least we weren't cut off like last time.
No. We're finished now. Yeah,
but
we're finished.
Oh, you're finished. Cut off when it streams on Saturday. We'll see what happens.
All right, kids. We will be back in a fortnight's time at this time with another interview, hopefully, or a report. Okay. We'll be back. Bye.
There you guys.
There it is. Play the outro.